What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Our first question comes from Mark, who asks if Maul knows that Darth Vader is Anakin.
After the Phantom Apprentice episode, I think he can probably put the pieces together. Like, he probably doesn't know for sure, but he knows that Sidious is after Anakin. And then all of a sudden, Sidious has this giant enforcer in all black. Like, I think he could probably figure that out.
Do you think he found out about the big Anakin-ObiWan fight on Mustafar?
I would like to think so, only because then he'd be super jealous of Anakin. Like, oh, that sounds so hardcore. They're fighting over lava and stuff. That should be me.
Yeah, but then he gets like even more kind of just like excited to fight Obi-Wan because he's like, oh man, Obi-Wan set him on fire.
Yeah, well,
he's crazy.
Now that I think about it, like, he didn't know that Obi-Wan survived the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels. He had to, like, figure that out. But I would like to think he did hear about that fight because it's just so badass. Like, he'd be really into it.
Yeah.
What I imagine is that at some point, though, he does face Vader because, again, in Rebels, when they find him on Malachor and he hears Vader's coming, he's like, oh, I can't take him alone. So it's possible he just knows that it's Anakin and doesn't feel like he can take him. But I would like to believe that at some point he and Vader had a confrontation.
Yeah, I can't really think of any reason for him to tell people that Vader is Anakin.
Yeah, I mean,
if he did know.
I don't know that it would gain him anything. And that's really all he cares about. It's like, I really like his motivation in The Phantom Apprentice because it's like, oh, he's kind of trying to do something good. And it's not a bad plan, but his motivations are all wrong.
Right.
He's trying to get more for himself. And it's similar to where in the previous episode, Obi-Wan and Anakin are running off to save the Chancellor. And it's like, of course, going to protect Coruscant is a good thing, but they're doing it for political reasons. And that's what Ahsoka's calling Obi-Wan out on. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a similar thing where it's like, yeah, you're doing the good thing, but for the wrong reasons.
Mr. J.D. Rice wants to know why Ahsoka doesn't figure out Darth Vader is Anakin until Star Wars Rebels.
I kind of liked these two questions kicking it off because it's like a similar thing. Ahsoka, I think denial is probably a factor.
Yeah, like, I wonder if she just assumes he's dead.
That sounds like, to go back to Star Wars Rebels again, I think that's the case. She stopped sensing Anakin in the Force because Anakin Skywalker ceased to be and became Darth Vader. Mm-hmm. So she couldn't find Anakin, so to speak, and just assumed he was dead. But then we get to that episode of Rebels where she, like, learns the truth, but it's pretty much like a, come on, like, just say it.
Yeah, it could be just one of those things, like you said about denial, that, like, she assumes he's dead and she's gonna keep telling herself that he's dead, but she keeps hearing these stories about this crazy robot tyrant that all of a sudden popped up.
And I don't think she, as far as we know, she didn't have any contact with Vader until Star Wars Rebels, the season 2 premiere, and they sense each other. And I guess when they're that close together and she's actually, like, she has a target, kind of. She's trying to reach out to Vader and realizes kind of who it is, but she doesn't want to believe it until the end of that season.
Yeah. Nathan Vanderest asks if Bo-Katan could be the mysterious boots that we see in episode 5 of The Mandalorian. So the mystery continues on who this shadowed figure is. There's been so many, like, posts online of, like, people that have enhanced the image and brightened it up, and it's like, oh, it's the Mandalorian, it's nobody else, everything matches. And I don't know, I've heard a million ideas on who that could be.
I still think that Boba Fett is the most likely candidate because of the spurs and like the sound effects, but those could just be Mandalorian sound effects. It doesn't have to be Boba Fett specifically. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we take any chance we get here to talk about how bad we want Bo-Katan to be in The Mandalorian.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anyone, but the fact that they kept that a secret, they didn't do any other sort of reveal for it. It would be the perfect throwback when they do introduce, assuming they will, Bo-Katan in season 2. Just, yeah, fingers crossed. If they do introduce Bo-Katan in season 2, that would be such a cool callback to the first season to then show that scene completely played out where she stands up and we see who it is. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, and the suggestion here is that she is tracking not Din Djarin, but maybe Moff Gideon. She's trying to get the Darksaber back, and I do like that she'd be on her own quest. Mm-hmm. So I'm absolutely not opposed to that. Boba Fett, again, it's like something I'm wary of, but it still seems like the most likely to me. We're going to have to make bets, I guess, before season 2.
I really don't want it to be Boba Fett.
I think it's okay at this point. I think that we have gotten to know the other characters enough that if he comes in as a pop in and out villain, I don't think he'd overshadow things. Yeah. So
I wouldn't mind them just like running into him and him having a lot of stories to tell, obviously, but being like, that's not my life anymore.
They're just like, oh, Boba Fett, Din, how's it going? They just walk on by and everyone's like, that's it?
Do you think Din knows about Boba Fett? And
I have to imagine.
Is he like a celebrity in the bounty hunter world?
Yeah. I think that he's probably the most notorious bounty hunter of his time. So I'm sure Din knows who he is, and maybe has been mistaken for him before.
Yeah. But then again, is he known for being an awesome bounty hunter, or is he known for being that bounty hunter that really messed up and got eaten by the Sarlacc?
Well, we haven't seen anyone really react to that yet. In some of the comics, he is definitely known and feared by other bounty hunters. So they have set him up to be someone scary. Now, people might be talking behind his back after Return of the Jedi, but...
Yeah. BB Nate wants to know who the villains could be after the Rise of Skywalker if the Sith are all gone for good, assuming that is the case.
Because it better be.
Because the dead speak.
As we know, the dead can speak. I think I talked about this in another video, but I think that the fact that it takes place on this Sith stronghold, we have a Sith throne. Rey not only obliterates Palpatine, but everything around her. Like, I think that is supposed to be symbolic of, okay, this time for real.
Yeah.
The Sith are gone.
But how does that work with balance in the Force?
I don't know. I mean, George Lucas has always kind of said that balance in the Force is not about like, only 2 Sith and 2 Jedi at any given time. Balance means like being in the light side.
Yeah.
That's where you find your inner peace, your happiness, true balance.
But there's also always going to be a dark side, but not necessarily Sith to fill it.
Exactly. And like, I was going to quote Luke in a way to say that the dark side is gone just because the Sith are gone is vanity. And the same way that if the Jedi disappeared, the light side wouldn't disappear. So I think that we are going to probably see some just new sect of dark side users, whether they follow some set religion or maybe they'll be a little more chaotic and just kind of like, we know the Force. Like, I guess that would be the Knights of Ren kind of thing. Like, we're just a bunch of warriors who have the Force and we're going to do what we want. It doesn't have to be the Sith. So... yeah, I think that I hope that we'll just see something new, because I really got tired in Legends of like, nope, the Sith are back again. The Sith are back again. Now we're the one Sith. Darth Crate's here. Like, it just, yeah, okay. Like, we can expand outside of the Sith and what we have seen already.
It'll be interesting to see where they take stories after the Rise of Skywalker. Does Rey decide to train more people in the ways of the Force? And if so, are we just going to go through another cycle of, oh, one of the students decides that the dark side is better, and they go in that direction, and then we start this whole game over.
I mean, and that's the same kind of thing that Legends did as well, which I feel like it's inevitable. But Luke had so many students fall to the dark side and come back, or sometimes they didn't, and that's why I think they're going to take a minute before they start exploring what happens in the future, because they have plenty of past to go through.
Yeah.
We're going to do High Republic. We can do even Older Republic.
And, I want Rey to have a life. I don't want her to feel like she needs to go straight into then teaching other people what she knows, because, it's still relatively new to even her. So I would like for her to live a few years of just normal life.
Honestly, yeah. When she has never had a break her entire life. Abandoned on Jakku at 6, worked her entire life as a scavenger. Now she's got all the Jedi, the future of the Jedi is in her hands now. It's give the girl a week off.
Let her do some traveling, see some more green.
She needs a treat yourself day.
Yeah. Bobby Lynn asks what plans we have for May the 4th.
Work. Clone Wars is going to end, which is awesome, but we're going to cover that.
Is it awesome or is it sad?
Oh,
it's both.
It's exciting,
yeah.
Because so far this arc has been amazing, and I don't see them just dropping the ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to watch that. We're going to watch, I think it's just the first episode of that behind the scenes thing is going to come out.
Oh, the Mandalorian stuff?
Yeah. The gallery for the Mandalorian, which I'm really excited to look into that stagecraft technology more. I think those are our main plans, but of course we will also be releasing the big ol' complete canon timeline video. I am still in the middle of working on that. Is obviously the longest one we've ever done because they just keep adding to it. It's not getting shorter.
Yeah, so it'll be updated with every new piece of canon information that's been added since last May 4th.
Yeah. So that'll be out. That should be out in the morning, assuming everything goes well. But yeah, those are our main plans. We might take part in they're doing a digital convention. There's a bunch of different cons that are kind of working together to do things throughout May 4th and May 5th. So we'll probably join in on some of that.
Yeah. But no hard plans other than releasing our normal content. But I think that's better for us that we can kind of join in on stuff as we find out about it.
Yeah. Join in on some of the fun.
Yeah. Lord Hosk wants to know how the channel is doing with everything going on in the world.
Yeah, I figure it wouldn't be bad to do a little channel update because other people are talking about it. And like he says in his question, our experience is the same as a lot of other YouTubers where our views are holding steady. Our watch time is up because a lot of people are just stuck at home watching YouTube. But the flip side of that is people aren't really going out and buying things. So advertisers aren't really pushing ads at all. So that side of things is down. But we're doing okay. And really this is where we plug our Patreon every week. And so we just figured it would be a good time to say, hey, thanks to our patrons. Because if it weren't for you guys, then we would be in some trouble.
Yeah, we're lucky, very lucky to be able to still do, for the most part, what we would do normally as our jobs during quarantine, during lockdown, all this kind of stuff. And, for those of you who are out in the world having to go to work every day, especially in law enforcement and the medical field, props to you guys, man. This is a weird time. But yeah, a really good time to thank our patrons.
Yes.
On to YouTube questions. Jacob the Hodge asks, what Maul would have done if his plan had worked and he had killed Anakin on Mandalore?
So his goal was to get Obi-Wan and Anakin to come, not Ahsoka, so that he can then try to kill Anakin and remove that piece from Palpatine's chessboard, so to speak. And I think that he would not have known what to do. Like, to have one of his plans actually work, I think he'd just be shocked and be like, where do I go from here?
Well, I wonder, like, if he took Anakin and the promise of Darth Vader away from Palpatine, would Palpatine then try to lure Maul back under his good graces? Like, would Maul use that as a way to team back up with him, or does he just want to kill him too?
I could kind of see Palpatine taking Maul back if he had to, and like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that was Maul's motivation, because he does seem like he's just trying to get his dad's approval. And like, Sidious might as well be his father.
Yeah.
And it's like constantly kind of like, look at me, Dad. And then Sidious just comes and shuts him back down and electrocutes him and imprisons him for a minute. And it's like, I think it's probably a lot like the son. We just watched the Mortis arc. The son wants to kill his father, but when his father dies, he's like devastated. I wonder if it's a similar kind of thing where Maul hates Sidious, wants him to lose, wants him to die, but also he's like, I wouldn't mind if he told me he loved me once.
Well, I think that if he had gotten rid of Anakin and Obi-Wan and it was just him and Palpatine, he'd be like, look, I'm obviously the worthy person here for you to take me as your ultimate apprentice. Like, I've gotten rid of all the competition, and then the two of them can just run around and do Sith things, whatever.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, that's the way Palpatine's always operated. He's constantly looking for the next hot new thing for his apprentice. And like, even after he has Vader in the comics, he brings in more rivals, and he's like, make sure you kill all them. Like, I'm not just going to let you sit there comfortably as my apprentice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if Maul had proven himself to be like, who else is there? I could see that absolutely happening and him joining back up with Sidious. Of course, then he would be trying to go on and still kill Sidious and replace him with his new apprentice. Like, that's just the cycle of the Sith.
And that wouldn't have ultimately worked for the two of them either, because I don't know, Vader is driven by his anger and just sadness over the loss of Padme for years and years and years. But if Maul gets to kill Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then he joins up with Sidious, like, I don't know if he could be controlled the same way that Vader was controlled by Sidious.
I think you're right. I think that Vader felt like a more complacent apprentice. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what bothered Palpatine, because again, in the Vader comics, when Vader learns that Sidious has been lying to him this whole time, he starts to amass an army to overthrow Palpatine, and he's like, thank you, finally. Like, he's almost like, you have finally shown me that you are a Sith.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I wasn't expecting such an interesting discussion from that question. That was fun.
Dudetastic wants to know if we could see a well-known species be discovered for the first time in the High Republic era.
So we know that the Republic at that point in time is actually probably a lot smaller than we are expecting it to be, and that the era in general is a time of great expansion. I think that's perfectly plausible that we would run into Ithorians or something for the first time, because we've seen in the Clone Wars the discovery of the Talz species. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a species that I guess becomes spacefaring immediately after, because then they're in the cantina. And yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't, like, I don't know, interact with some familiar species, but for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I just don't see I don't see a story there. I mean, they could definitely prove me wrong, but it would have to make sense story-wise.
That's the thing, where it would have to be something like the reason that we were introduced to the tall species was for a good story reason to kind of talk about colonialism and imperialism and that terrible was it Plutonian that was trying to wipe them all out and say that he owned them. Pantoran, that's who it was.
Plutonian. I was like, what?
Yeah, the Pantoran. that he's trying to like control this moon because it's ours, and they didn't know that there was a species on it.
It's a very Clone Wars centric story to tell. So I guess in that reason, I don't see a place for that in what they're doing with the High Republic as far as like books and comics and stuff. But you never know.
It's like, I'm sure they could find a reason, but like the one that comes to mind is a very similar story where it's like, oh, we've discovered this species and this planet and it's ours now.
Yeah.
Like there could be, I think there could be some pushback from some planets saying like, we're not really about that Galactic Republic life, and maybe they need to be convinced.
Maybe they discover the Pikes and they're part of these marauder pirate kind of type people.
Could be. I mean, yeah, that'll be interesting too. Like the Nile could be made up of people completely outside of the Republic, and so that could be like a first impression for a lot of species is like, oh, we were marauders and we're good now and we'd like to be part of your republic. Thanks.
Yeah. Carbon Tactics asks what Ahsoka wanted ObiWan to tell Anakin.
I'm going to guess it was just may the Force be with you.
When is this?
It's in The Phantom Apprentice after Obi-Wan has his little hologram chat with him.
Right.
And he tells her that Anakin has to spy on the Chancellor, and she's like, he won't be happy about that. And as she's like hanging up the call, she says, will you tell Anakin? And she kind of trails off and he says, of course, or something. I think it's probably just may the Force be with you, because in Revenge of the Sith, that's the last thing Obi-Wan tells Anakin.
Yeah. Probably. I wouldn't imagine it's like, I love you, big brother.
Yeah. I'm also just trying to think of things that we know he does tell Anakin. And it's like, obviously he doesn't say, hey, Ahsoka says, may the Force be with you. But it's like, that could be construed as just a general, everyone wants the Force to be with you.
Yeah. Ubo Ease wants to know how Maul eventually loses Crimson Dawn.
We don't know yet. I mean,
that isn't not a story that has been told yet.
Yeah.
But I assume it's for Maul reasons, for lack of a better phrase.
I think it's Sisyphus is the Greek or Roman myth, and this is coming from Sam Witwer, who said that Dave Filoni or George Lucas said that Maul is Sisyphus. He is constantly pushing the boulder up the hill only to have it fall back down. Mm-hmm. And Crimson Dawn is just another one of those things. I would like it to be for a betrayal. Like Kira could do something, betray him. I could also see it being, John Kasdan suggested that Solo was going to like build in more movies as like a criminal syndicate war. So
that would be a great story to see.
Totally agree. So it could be like the Hutts wipe him out, or the Pikes, or Black Sun, something. Or it could be that like this criminal syndicate war gets so big that Darth Vader steps in and is like, everyone shut it down, and that's when he fights Maul. I think that would be a good reason for them to come to blows.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever it is, I'm sure it's tragic for Maul in some way, because he just like goes crazy and ends up going back to Old Faithful obsessing about Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it's all he's got.
Alley Cat asks why Maul didn't do something more simple to get Anakin's attention, like kidnap Padme instead of starting another war on another planet. Well, Maul is not about the simple life.
I was going to say he's just not a very subtle person.
No.
I mean, when you look like that, subtlety just goes out the window. And like I said earlier, a lot of his things are very much like, look at me, look at me. Like, I'm the biggest bad in the galaxy.
And also he probably is like, well, everyone kidnaps Padme. Like, I don't want to just be another person who kidnaps Padme, because there's a good chance she might get away, and then that would be embarrassing for me.
Yeah, knowing his track record. Well, yeah, she does like get out of every scrape, so it's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. But I think also it sounds like he didn't know who Anakin really was until recently. He had a vision where he saw his name. He knew that he was with ObiWan a lot, so he's like, okay, how do I get ObiWan's attention, and hopefully Anakin comes along for the ride. He probably didn't know very much about Anakin. He probably didn't know that Padme was close to him. I guess he didn't even really seem to know who Ahsoka was.
Yeah.
So he's got tunnel vision on ObiWan and Sidious.
Yeah.
And strangely, ObiWan's first. It's
Right.
like, he already killed Satine. What more do you want to do to the guy?
Well, yeah. And plus, I think he also wants to build up his name, and when he takes over Mandalore, like, he's like getting more and more power hungry, and then like a kidnapping seems, I don't know,
counterintuitive, or like, I think you're right, where he's starting a war and it's like, I'll kill two birds with one stone. I'll get more power and I'll get Anakin over here. Whereas like just kidnapping someone is like, well, there's not much else.
It's just not his style.
Yeah. It's like, this doesn't further my other agendas. He's an efficient man he's making up for lost times when he was stuck on the junk planet with spider legs. He's like, I gotta do things quick now.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.